first couple of years around my property, I was just learning the basics, the signs and symptoms of Sasquatch. After confirming that these creatures actually do exist, I needed to know if they were dangerous or not. Was my family in danger? Finding an answer to that question was not easy. There is a huge chasm between the factions of believers, researchers, and witnesses. The opinions range from these creatures are an elusive primate or guardian and brother of the forest, all the way to they are demons or the offspring of the fallen angels from the Bible. Some people claim that they have interdimensional capabilities, that these creatures are liminal or they live between worlds. When it comes to the eyewitness accounts on whether these creatures are dangerous or violent vary just as much. I came to the conclusion that if I wanted to know what these creatures were and if they were dangerous or not, I would have to learn these things in person in the woods. Over the next 4 years, I would go from, hey, these creatures play with rocks and sticks, to learning they are an actual family unit with children that seem to have an actual language with actual syllables in the language. I went from waiting on them to show up to being able to go to an established neutral ground. I could make my presence known and then have them interact all around me.
All right. Good job. All right. Good job.
What out of you? What out of you? Unspoken truth left from you. Slipped away, no more words for you. Take it back, no matter what you do. The truth, breathe it out. Face your boundaries. Our mission trudge through the mud of time. This truth casts shadows in the dark. Shadows in the dark.
In part one, we've gone over the first probably 2.5 years. We went from having no idea what was going on around here, thinking there was kids or we had prowlers. We had a bunch of different options for what was going on. And then eventually I would figure out, hey, it's these creatures. These Sasquatch things really exist. And there's a lot of answers to questions that I'm never going to have. And I realize that. Like, why in the world was it so belligerent towards my neighbors at first? Why was it seemed to be targeting the teenage boy? And the only thing I could think was, I remember near the beginning, he actually cleared out a spot on the back of their property to turkey hunt. Was that enough to do it? I'll never know what set it off. When it comes to the activity starting over here, I think the answer to that is very simple. I was responding and going over there. So probably it followed me back or got interested in me by me getting myself involved in all that. And then the activity started over here. It was nowhere near as belligerent or as hostile as it seemed to be over there. So what was it doing? And was it dangerous? That's what I had to figure out. I was fascinated. From the moment that thing growled at me, I'll tell you right now, it's probably the most scared I've ever been in my life. And I've been in a lot of scary situations. but I've never felt helpless before. Like when it growled at me, it scared me so much that all I could do, all I could think to do, was to turn my neck just a little bit, just enough to look in its direction, and standing there in the dark, waiting for whatever happens next, listening for it to run towards me or wait for the impact of a rock, or maybe it was going to attack me, whatever it was going to do. I didn't know. All I knew was to stay as still as possible and listen and watch. And then after I sat there for a minute or so, I said, all right, man, I get it. And I backed out. I knew right then and there what had happened. I knew that this thing had been running around here testing. It seemed like it was testing us out for whatever reason. And then I'm the one that started doing the armed patrols at night, trying to get an answer, trying to stir up a hornet's nest. And I got the hornet's nest. And it let me know it was there. It threw rocks all around me twice. And I could have left, but I didn't. I kept pushing. I kept looking. Later on, it would all make sense. You've already seen what I think is possibly thermal video of the juvenile. So that was my first hint that, wait a second, maybe, obviously there's an adult out here. Maybe it's got kids. Maybe that's what all of this is about. Maybe this thing was just trying to find a place to raise a family, and it had to test the humans in the area first to figure out what it was dealing with. That's eventually the conclusion I came to. Because over time, the interactions would go from, for the first probably 2.5 years, it felt like I was dealing strictly with an adult. I got growled at multiple times. I saw it walk down the middle of my driveway, and there's no way you're going to convince me that that was a mistake. It's like it was showing me what I was dealing with. But the first time that I really felt confident I was dealing with not only an adult, but juveniles, was on an evening that I came home from work. For about a week, I would come home from work, and just about every other night, I was hearing an owl back here in this wood line behind me. And it wasn't high up, like, it just didn't sound like it was way up in a tree. It's like it was always head high. And it just sounded kind of off, but I didn't think too much of it. I want to say it happened maybe about 3 times. And then one evening, I came home, and like clockwork, I'm walking to the gate. I get almost to the gate, and then right behind me, about 15 feet away, I hear that same owl, and it is definitely like head high, and it definitely sounds off. So it actually freaked me out a little bit because it was so close. I mean, it's just like right back in this wood line. So I go in the gate, and I turn around, and I'm standing there, and I attempted to mimic the sound that it made. And I just made pretty much just a crappy owl call. Right after I did that, there were 2 of somethings. One was head high, and one was down on the ground, that instantly imitated the crappy owl call I did. It sounded exactly like 2 excited children. Like they were just super happy I was playing this, pretend to be an owl game. And that's the evening that I realized, wait a second. I really do believe there's juveniles out here. And that kind of changed everything. I found out very early on if I would set out a trail camera in a particular area, the activity would no longer originate from that area until I moved the camera. Eventually, I would move on to Wi-Fi cameras. The Wi-Fi cameras were mainly, I didn't really have a hope. I mean, I always hoped I'd get lucky, but I didn't really think that they were going to walk in front of these Wi-Fi cameras. But I knew I had a really good chance of catching vocalizations through these Wi-Fi cameras. We've already established that they make animalistic noises. I've got the growl recorded. I've heard vocalizations that kind of sound like other animals. As time would progress, I would start recording vocalizations that sounded like language with actual syllables in it. Most people that are familiar with the topic of Sasquatch have heard the eyewitness accounts where they have heard language that sounds like, they call it samurai chatter, or like someone speaking another language underwater. Finally, after years of working evening shift, I got morning shift. And instead of going to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I started getting up at 3 a.m. I got up one morning and I felt really sick to my stomach. I went and got some Pepto. I let the dogs out. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to lay down on the couch and hopefully my stomach will settle and I can just go to work. I went and laid down on the couch. I don't think I'd been laying there for more than a minute or two. I heard a very deep voice literally through my wall. It penetrated from the outside of my house through my house to me on the couch. That's how deep this voice was. I have a deck on the outside that connects to that wall. I heard that very deep voice. The dogs went nuts and then they kept barking. Now, even though I wasn't really in the mood to play games that morning, I got up. I went out the back door on the back deck. I listened. I looked. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. The dogs were still sniffing around, barking around and stuff, but that was pretty much it. I eventually got ready for work, went to work. I got a few minutes to myself, and I pulled up the video from the Wi-Fi camera that I had on the corner of my house. And the audio that it recorded literally gave me an adrenaline rush. This is one of the strangest audios that I've recorded. It is extremely animalistic sounding, yet it can be described as actual talking with syllables in it. When you hear this vocalization, it really made me think, man, how smart are these creatures? Do they have their own language?
When I heard the vocalization, that deep sounding voice through the wall, I was laying right here.
This is the first part of the recording. Now, this area here, that's what I heard through the wall. Then you're going to hear it, what sounds like something running on my deck. And then the first set of dog barks. I'll turn down the volume when we get to there because it's very loud. This is the second part of the audio.
is wild. It vocalizes and then walks off. It's still on the deck.
Now, I am on the edge of a massive wildlife management area, but my property is just a couple acres. And what I found was there's a massive fishbowl effect and filling, like you've already kind of seen with the vocalization for my back porch. There's one specific night that I just realized I'm going to give up on the whole sneaking around thing and even really trying to trick them. It just wasn't going to happen. And I learned that the hard way. I thought that I was going to be sneaky. It was in the winter time where we were getting a little bit of sleet. It had been raining. So the leaves were, nice and wet. And I figured I'm just going to go out of my door and I'm going to go away. I normally don't go. I'm going to go down this other side of my property. I'm not going to use any lights and I'm going to move super slow. I got camouflage on. I did have a headlamp, but I wasn't using it. And right when I get into that wood line over there if you're looking at my house, it's the right side of my property in between me and my other neighbor. There's a small wood line right there. Right when I got to that wood line, something happened behind me. Now, what you're going to see is the video starts right after this event happens. Basically, what happens is they get super close. And instead of just turning around and going back to my gate, which is 30 feet away from me, I decide to keep going and go all the way back around my property because there's a clearing. Once you get kind of towards the back of my house, it opens up more in this one specific spot. And all I could think was, I want less trees around me right now. Because as I think I'm sneaking around and getting out there and being silent and Mr. Ricky Recon, they showed me right off the bat that you're not fooling anyone at all.
I just had an experience that scared the crap out of me. Oh. Bastards got in behind me on my own damn property. Anyway, this is the way I walked. So the plan was to walk out here. Man, I need to check this tomorrow. So right now we're in the front of my house. My driveway comes across at an angle. Right, so I walked around. I got a motion sensor light there, so I couldn't go out that gate, so I went this way. Now, this comes into play. It's raining, so I can't use my good gimbal, so this video is not going to be great. You see where that light is? They're building a house there, but nobody's there. They hadn't been there for several hours. It's nowhere near complete for them to stay in it. But that's important, because nobody's there. What is that? Almost 100 yards. No, 75, 80 yards away. Path I took, there's my house. So I come down through here and I'm sneaking. I walk through here. I think I'm around like right here. It may have been there, I don't know. Right around in here, and I hear, you'll hear it in the video, just like something's just dropped a bunch of crap, and it was coming back from that house over there, but nobody's there. Somebody picked stuff up and just dropped it or whatever, heavy crap. You'll hear me in the video say, Jesus Christ. Whatever, I kept going. I get down right over here in this area. I get over here and I'm looking all through there. And I hear a possum, or I see a possum or something right over there down at the bottom of that hill. And right behind me, I hear a wood knock up in this area. And I did not realize it. It's obvious once I tell you. I went back and put it in the audio file, equalizer thing I got. You can hear the footsteps of it running up and then hitting the tree. And it was so close. And then after, they got behind me. I've got a neighbor right there. There's this small stretch of woods. I thought I was sneaking out and going back down this hill right here and gonna go check out all that back there behind my house. Jesus Christ. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. You hear that behind me? You hear that behind me?
So what about my wife? What about the rest of my family? How do they feel about this? Have they had experiences? My wife has had a few things happen around here. And she's one of those people that just doesn't want to deal with it. She does not like to think about the things in this world that are unknown. Okay. She just doesn't have the interest or the bandwidth. She's just trying to live her life. There's a reason why we live where we live with very few neighbors, right here next to the wildlife management area. She likes nature, the outdoors. She wants to raise children and her animals and be left alone. At the beginning, when we thought we were still dealing with humans, she had an event that was pretty scary for her. She called me up at work and told me we had a car that was at the edge of our property. It was her grandmother's old car. It wasn't a nice car. It was a piece of junk. She said she heard and saw someone walking around the car, like silhouette or shadow. It'd probably be 10, 15 minutes before the cops got here. So she called me and I told her, look, get my pistol, go outside, fire a couple warning shots. I told her exactly where to aim, which is nowhere near the car, somewhere safe. I didn't want her shooting a kid or whatever it was. And she did. I stayed on the phone with her. She fired 2 shots. And actually, the neighbors ended up calling the cops because it was, I don't know what it was, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. But after she fired the 2 rounds, she didn't hear or see anything. It was probably gone by the time she was out there, came inside, called me, and got the gun. Who knows? I doubt it was still there. But anyway, that's kind of one of the first times she had to deal with things herself or really had something happen to her. Now, over the years, she would have things happen here and there. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law were over here eating dinner with my wife. They both drove their own cars. My brother-in-law left earlier. My wife calls me at work and says, hey, I just got a phone call from my brother. He left about 10 minutes ago. But like right after he left, he called me up and said, "Hey, I don't know what's in your woods, but whatever it is, it's big and it followed me out." So apparently something that's very large was very obviously escorting my brother-in-law down the driveway as he left, which, it's fascinating because it's another male that's hardly ever here. That part of it was pretty fascinating. The fact that he's prior Marine Corps also, he also hunts. He's a big bow hunter. It's not like he's the type of person to freak out over a deer, walking around at night in the woods. And she believed him and felt like it was tied to the things I'd been telling her by that time. And I wasn't sure that she actually believed me or not. But eventually, over the years, she would have her own small things happen here and there. What I'm very grateful for, she's not experienced anything that's really, really freaked her out, besides that night she had to, fire the warning shots. But she doesn't live in fear. I've explained as much about these creatures as I know. I want her to be fully aware of what's going on. She's very cognizant of, like, she's had events where during the day she goes out to the chicken coop and she's heard wood knocks. She's gone out there during the evening and gotten eggs and closed the gate. And as she's coming back inside, objects will fall behind her, like something's being thrown. She points things out that are weird nowadays. She's also helped when I've gotten videos or thermal videos of what I believe to be these things, and she's helped out with comparison videos. She's been very supportive of everything I've done, but I guess she's gotten comfortable with it kind of being a part of our life. There is one time where in the middle of the afternoon, I'm sitting on the recliner, she's sitting at her computer desk, and something just slaps the ever-loving mess out of the side of our house. And I run out there and there's nothing there. But for the most part, I think not knowing was worse than knowing it's these creatures to her. There's one event in particular that she was almost a part of. In fact, the Sasquatch, I believe it's a Sasquatch that I got on video, on thermal video, was in the same wood line throwing objects at me while she was out getting something from her vehicle. I'd already been having activity that week, so I was ready. I had the thermal camera sitting out on the front porch with me. My wife comes outside and has to go to her vehicle to get something for work. So she walks across the yard, goes out our gate, goes to the car, and I'm sitting there just listening to a podcast or something, and an object is thrown into the yard. Obvious, comes through the woods and lands. My dogs react. They run over there. They're barking. I get the thermal camera. I go down into the yard. I'm standing there. I'm seeing, obviously, I'm getting something hot on thermal. Another object is thrown and it comes through the tree right above me and goes right in front of the camera. I've got it just dead to rights. This object comes right down in front of me. I'm standing there recording the wood line, and there's actually a couple different hot spots. Trying to find this thing, and my wife comes back in the gate, has no idea what's going on, comes up and says, "Hey, I found my thing," and explains something, and I'm like, "Uh-huh," and she just continues to walk and go inside. And I even comment, she has no idea what's going on right now. Well, unfortunately, my phone was still playing that podcast, so I can't hear anything. I'm like, I got to turn this phone off. So I go back up. I turn the podcast off. I go back down in my yard. And I'm looking and I find what I think is a face. Now, there's movement and symmetry, and it looks a whole heck of a lot like the one that I saw walk across my driveway. I was not standing out there looking at the Sasquatch with my naked eyes. I cannot tell you 100% that that's what this is, but judging by the movement, the thermal I was getting, the throw that I recorded, the fact that as I started moving closer to the wood line, more throws were coming over my head, I do believe this is thermal image video of a Sasquatch.
What in the hell?
It was about $50.
Is it really?
Yes.
Good Lord.
Because people collectors want the original outfit, and this is a piece that gets lost most often.
Alright, I gotta turn the phone off. Hey, psst, y'all quit. Alright, y'all just saw something hit the tree, made a leaf fall off, and then there's something right there. Wife had no idea what was going on. I gotta turn this stupid phone off. There it is. Hear the stuff falling behind me. There, it looks like a face. Right there, look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a face.
After getting that video, I was very excited to get that close to getting more evidence that really has the potential to prove that what I've been talking about for years is true. And, some people, there's mixed responses, with every piece of evidence. Some people completely believe that that's a Sasquatch in that video. See exactly what I see. There's other people that don't think it's pareidolia. And that's fully, totally understandable. And as a researcher, this is kind of when I really started developing the mindset of what my goal was and what type of standards I was going to have. And I realized as a researcher, with it, if you remove context from something, it completely changes what you're looking at, right? You've got the fact that there's the initial throw. I've got the throw on video of the stick coming down right in front of me. There's obviously something alive with a heat signature moving around, and then I find the movement, and then the movement's a face, and it all comes together. But the fact of the matter is, if I remove all the context and you don't know that there were the throws, you don't realize that something's moving in the woods. If all you see is that face, can it convince you that Sasquatch is a real creature? And the answer to that is no. It's nowhere near good enough. So as happy as I was about getting that video, and as convinced as I was that it was, one of these creatures, I knew it wasn't good enough. Sometimes I just had to stop and remind myself that this is the opportunity of a lifetime. These creatures are actually coming here and willingly interacting. They have an obvious curiosity. It felt like I was starting to build up a trust. So I wanted to be very, very careful about everything I did, because I have one part of me that's pulling me towards trying to get evidence. I would get a really good piece of evidence and show it and move on and think, all right, I got to get another one. I got to get better evidence. I got to get more evidence. I got to get better video. I got to blah, 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 blah. And sometimes I just have to stop and realize and be thankful for the opportunity I had to interact with these things. It feels like a gift. And I didn't want to squander that. I also did not want to push them to the point to where, I scared them off. I also didn't want to bring them in too close to where there weren't boundaries anymore. All of this, the amount of time I spent thinking about this stuff is, maddening, or could be maddening if it wasn't so interesting. But I knew them just coming into the perimeter of my property and having our 1 minute interactions and then leaving, it couldn't go on like that. I knew, or I wanted to think, that maybe there was more. I didn't know if it was possible. I'd heard other stories about people having more intimate interactions, more intimate gift exchanges, and stuff like that. And I've heard stories of people having relationships with these things. You don't really know what to believe because there's not actual physical evidence backing up a lot of these claims. But the thought is always, man, what is actually possible? But I had to figure out my next step. I just felt like there was more. So the next thing I did was something that I had heard for years, don't ever do, and that's gifting. The reason why people say don't ever gift these things food is because the theory is, or some of the stories out there are, that people provided these creatures with scraps or horse feed or dog food or whatever. The creatures became dependent on that, and then the humans, for whatever reason, took that resource away, and then the Sasquatch became belligerent. Then I thought, there's other people out there that gift all the time. There's tons of researchers out there gifting all types of things, apples, candy bars, you name it. Now, the general rule is you don't want to be leaving scraps of food out for any wild animals, but I don't see them as wild animals. I think they're way smarter than that. So I started to think about ways that I could gift that were possibly safe. I wanted to gift things that were readily available, that I couldn't really see them getting dependent on. I started out with eggs. And the reason why I chose eggs is because I've got a chicken coop. They could literally go in that chicken coop and take eggs anytime they wanted. It's got a screen door latch on the back. The point of leaving the eggs was, and a lot of people suggested when I started doing this, to leave cameras out there on them. I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to try to trap or trick them. I made a conscious effort to start leaving the eggs out, as in, hey, I'm leaving you something, whether you take it or not. This is mine. I'm giving it to you. That was the purpose. I also, for a very short time, left out deer corn. I've got 3 other neighbors that leave out deer corn. I knew this was a calculated risk, but like I said, I really, really gave some thought to the whole process. I drew some lines in the sand for myself and just tried a few things. And I'll tell you right now, I wish I would have done it sooner. The results from this experiment, the changes that took place after I started leaving these eggs out, were just mind-boggling. It changed like the entire dynamic, and it started out kind of slowly, but it launched my research into the stratosphere when it came to interactions with these things. I started out leaving eggs directly behind the house. I say directly, probably about 30 yards away. And I don't even know what I was thinking. It was like a wire hanging basket that looked like a medieval trap. And after it was out there for a little while, I'm like, there's just no way these things are going to touch this thing.
I just did my little kind of artificial bird nest. Got a few little pricklies on it. Maybe if it sits out here long enough, they'll get to trust it.
So I left that out. I left those eggs in that basket for months and nothing touched them. Then eventually I started leaving a corn pile with eggs on top of it, a few yards in another location.
I redid the egg thing, my egg basket.
And then I started leaving eggs in what I considered their area, across the creek and up the hill. When I started doing that, everything changed.
When I started gifting up near the house, the eggs in the corn would disappear, but there was no way to know whether it was them or another animal. In fact, there was no direct response. Everything changed when I started gifting in this area. And when I would come back here to bring eggs, I would pretty much take the same path every time. Come right through here and past that stump, which is very important. And I started leaving eggs in a couple different spots around here. The first spot I started leaving them was here. And then I started leaving them in random areas around here. Like in that log right there. All in the same general area right here. After I'd been doing it a while, I came back to this same spot. And there was a squirrel, a dead squirrel, laying right here. Or in this general area. I can't remember exactly where it was because I didn't take video of it, unfortunately. I should have, but I didn't find it that odd. It was a dead squirrel, but it was only half of it. That was kind of odd. It was the bottom half of the squirrel. I just figured, I don't know, maybe I spooked something that was in the middle of eating it, or it dropped from somewhere when it was being eaten or something.
So the day after finding that squirrel, I get a phone call from my wife when I'm on my way home from work. And she tells me that there is a dead squirrel right behind the chicken coop. And I get home and I go back to check this squirrel out. And there's nothing, it's obviously dead, but there doesn't appear to be much wrong with it, like it was attacked and eaten or whatever. It's like the squirrel just fell asleep right there behind the chicken coop. Now, it just seemed a little on the nose. Like, I'm leaving eggs, then I find a squirrel. I don't touch, or half of a squirrel. I don't touch the half of the squirrel. And then the next day, there's a full squirrel right behind the chicken coop.
And there's a dead squirrel right behind the chicken coop. Chicken coop. Squirrel. Shortly after that, I decide to come out here right before it gets dark with my thermal camera and set up and watch the hill where all the activity has been happening. I've got a couple different recorders going. I've got my thermal in my hand, and like right when it's dark enough to where I can no longer see anything, I catch something in the thermal going across their hill. And it is hauling butt. To me, I can't even tell what it is. I thought it was a bird. It was moving so fast, and it's going straight across that hill, starting from back where I had found the squirrel, zooming across the hill very, very fast. And I'm watching it on thermal, and finally it stops right behind a tree, and it looks like it's on all fours. It stops behind a tree and looks at me. And the face on this thing looks like a little monkey. Now, I can't tell you exactly what I got on video. I can tell you a whole bunch of things that it doesn't look like. And it definitely looks to me like a little monkey. Dude, what was that? What is that? What is that? Dude, what was that? What is that? What is that? Now, something I found very interesting is how it kind of changes shape. Like right now, it's kind of compact. And you start seeing that front, what looks like an arm come out. It flattens out. That arm moves up. And look at that. There's not, I mean, to me, it kind of looks like something going up on its hands and knees.
The next interesting thing I find is, you remember the stump I told you was very important? I found it on top of that stump, right there where I walk into my gifting area.
And I'm walking up. And there's a rock stuck here. Alright, there's no way to know 100%, but another odd part is this is the way I come every time, right up through here. And if something or someone wanted to leave something for me to see, that stump right there would be about as perfect of a spot to leave it. But I am going to take it, and then I'm going to take it up close to my house, and then I'll leave it somewhere up there. Maybe see if it ends up back here. Over here.
Looks like the mango or anything. That looks like
Don't touch
toad.
it.
That looks exactly like that.
It is a foot. Put your foot over here next to it. Take your shoe off. Oh, you got socks on.
Yeah.
Well, just do it next to it though.
Like, it's like my size. But neither of us were barefoot. None of us.
I can't believe I just found that.
Yeah, I stepped right next to it though.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
As I'm sure you can imagine, it was very exciting to start having the activity and finding the evidence back in that area, especially because of the fact for years leading up to that, the mass majority of the interactions and the evidence that I was finding was all very close to the house. They were 100% in charge. They decided when they wanted to interact, and if I was lucky, I'd be able to, record in some way, shape, or form the interactions I was having, right? It's not from lack of trying, I spent hours back in those woods during the day and at night, walking around, sitting out there for hours, doing lives from back there whenever I would have signal. But for whatever reason, when I started gifting back on that hill, it changed everything. When I started going back there at night and either leaving eggs, and eventually when we had a garden, I would leave vegetables. So leaving eggs or vegetables, I would go out there and leave stuff at night, or I would just go out there and check on the things that I'd left, right? Well, eventually things started happening at night, very slowly. I'd go out there and I'd hear a break. I'd go out there and maybe get a throw. There was one night my son went down there with me and we had a break. Like, we were on one side of the creek. And there was something that was broke right across the creek. Still very simple things. And it was usually only one thing that would happen. Well, I can't remember exactly what happened down there one night, but I'm like, all right, well, I think they're here. I'm going to leave an audio recorder about 50 yards behind my house. Not directly in their area, but kind of the halfway mark between my area and what will eventually be my sitting spot. So I went out there with the recorder, I set it up, and I made it super obvious. Again, I'm not trying to trick them. I'd given up on the sneaking around. I wanted to make it super obvious and see what would happen. Well, that audio recorder recorded a very, very obvious break and a very, very obvious focal.
It starts out with a little bit of breaking here. Very, very obvious break here. And then vocals right here. They go, ah, ah.
So in September of 2023, sitting right here, I would experience something very simple but extremely profound for the first time. And it would change the nature of the interactions that I was having with these creatures for the next 2 years. It started out like several other nights before. I'd go across the creek. I'd go check on the eggs. This particular night, I think I had like bell peppers and stuff inside of a Tupperware that I'd been leaving, trying to see if they'd open it. I went up there to check it out. I got done. I walked down the side of the hill, down to the creek, coming back towards my house. And as soon as I stepped across the creek, there was a sound behind me. It sounded like a wood knock or a throw, something like that, but it was very obvious. And it came from the exact area where I had just been. So I walked up the hill and sat right here on this log. I grabbed a stick and I did a wood knock on the log. And after I did that wood knock, there was a very obvious throw. Now, you're not going to be able to hear the first one very well. But after that first throw, I do another wood knock. After I do that second wood knock, there is a super, super obvious throw that lands pretty close. And as you'll be able to see, I get very excited about that.
I'm up on their hill. I'm leaving the goodies here with a stick. I hope to God y'all heard that. I'm gonna do it again. This is freaking awesome. Oh my God, I've got chills.
I knew that that was a very significant event. I'd never really had that happen before. Where they make a noise, I came and sat down, I do a wood knock, then they throw an object, then I do a wood knock, and then they throw another object even closer. Not to mention the fact I've never done wood knocks. Maybe if I'm way out in the middle of a wilderness area, I might do one. But around here, I'm too close to people, so I've never wanted to do that. What I did not realize is what this would turn into. I think I went the very next night, or I might have skipped the night. I can't remember. I went back to the same exact spot. I started it out with a wood knock. I did a couple throws, throwing objects at a tree. And eventually they would come in and do some very, very obvious throws. On top of that, I had one of them come up behind me very close. Now, just like the first night, you're not going to be able to see much. I've got a thermal camera on me that I'm trying to record them with. Then I've got a GoPro, and then I've got my cell phone for audio, okay? So I'm only going to show you that second night of the activity. What would end up happening is I would have like 5 or 6 other nights over the period of 3 months where the activity would progressively get more obvious, over the top breaks, very close throws, hear them moving around. Like this happened 5 or 6 times. Now it did not happen every time I went out there. When all this was going on, I tried to explain thoroughly that I'm going out probably 4 to 6 nights a week. And the vast majority of the time, nothing's happening. But I end up having 5 or 6 nights where I get these amazing responses. I'll show you night 2 because that's when they run up behind me. You'll be able to see me react. You can kind of hear in the background like the running up through the leaves, and then I jump up. It scares me. I had just convinced myself to sit down on my butt on the ground. I'm trying to be as unaggressive as humanly possible, okay? So for that whole first year, it's only audio and just a little bit of video because, number one, I'm trying to just get them on thermal. Thermal video is what I want. And I do have a night vision phone, but it's got infrared. And as you know, a lot of people have probably heard before, maybe you haven't, there is a hypothesis that Sasquatch can see infrared. I don't know if that's true or not. I have some reasons to think that maybe it isn't, because when you use an iPhone, and 99% of the evidence I've gotten and the interactions I've had an iPhone on me going, there's a big wall of infrared dots out in front of you. So if they can see infrared, I don't know why that wouldn't bother them. But that's neither here nor there. But what I did know is you can see the infrared light with your naked eye because of the wavelength of the infrared on that phone. And I did try a couple times to bring that out there with me, and then nothing would happen. And then I'd wonder, well, is it this infrared light on the phone? What is it? So I quit doing that. So all I got was really good audio in 2023 over the period of 3 months. But as you will see, in 2024, I decide, you know what? Nobody can see anything. And they're having to take my word on the fact that, like, it's not me throwing these objects. It's pretty obvious, even with the audio, that I'm not the one doing it, especially with the breaks. But I finally say, you know what? I've got to use the night vision camera. So I end up bringing it out there with me and setting it up to where you can see me at least. And the things that happen and the interactions I had in 2024 just get more and more amazing as time goes on. So let's start out with the second night that I had these experiences where they come up right behind me.
Come on. Oh, man. It came right over my head. Good job. Thank you. Did y'all hear that? Thank you. I heard it. doing? I hear you. I hear you. Come on. Boy, that scared the shit out of me. What you doing? I hear you. Come on. I shouldn't have got up like that. It scared me though. There's another one. Alright, so this is where it's all been happening. This is where I've been sitting. Here's my stick that I've been doing my wood knocks with. And right back there, if you can see why they can so easily get up on me, is it all goes downhill right there. All the activity has been coming from over in that direction, and they ran up behind me there. I can't see down into the creek, so they can stay at the bottom of this hill right here, and I can't see them at all.
From what I've seen over the years, Sasquatch research comes down to a whole heck of a lot of patience, pattern recognition, and context clues. I am, believe it or not, a realist. I understand that a lot of this is just guessing. But every once in a while, I have things happen that even though I don't have 100% proof that they did it, going based on something happening a couple times, I feel pretty confident about it. And one of those things that happened during all this was I went down to the creek one afternoon looking for tracks, looking for breaks, because they're breaking the heck out of stuff back there when I go into that sitting area. And I end up investigating or looking at, there's like a sapling in the ground that's broken off. It's about that big around. I stop and look at it. I find another branch, just another dead branch that's leaning up against a tree. I stop and I look at it. It's probably 5 feet tall and about that big around. I get done, go inside. The next evening, I do the same exact thing, or I'm going to. On my way down there, taking the same trail I always do, there is a stick stuck in the ground that looks exactly or a lot like the sticks that I was looking at the day before. Were they watching me stop and look at these sticks that all were the same general size? Hey, here's another one. Right here in the middle of the trail, we saw you down there. That's what my brain's thinking. Rule number one, trees fall in the woods. Sticks fall in the woods. So it's very hard to tell if it's just something natural that happened and it's just a coincidence, or something they did. Well, in this particular case, I would have something else happen later on that kind of verified my suspicions. And it was so over the top that it's just really very, very hard to ignore.
This is new. again. Trees fall in the woods.
So during this whole time of me going back to that sitting area, like I knew how groundbreaking it was to be able to go back there and do a wood knock. And then it would usually take in between 5 to 15 minutes, and they would show up and start interacting. Like I knew that's what I'd been working towards. But there was part of me that was a little afraid that maybe I was taking it the wrong way. Maybe this rock throwing and the fact that the one ran up behind me, it'll end up doing it again later on. And the breaking and everything was intimidation tactics. They wanted me to leave. Now, I didn't believe that, but I knew I could be wrong about that. Now, there was about a week where I didn't go back there. And then my father came into town. Well, this one particular night, something happened that kind of verified that, hey, they're totally okay with this, because they actually came and got me, for lack of a better phrase. At this point in time, I had kind of talked to my father, my stepfather. He's one of the only people in the world who I really care, who their opinion of me has the potential to hurt my feelings. Let's put it that way. I care what people think, but I've got there's very few people who could really, really, their opinion really, really matters to me, But so I hadn't been totally open about it yet. He's over at the house. Him and I did something. I can't remember if we were working on our bathroom or something. Him and I are sitting on the front porch, and there's a very obvious throw that lands in the yard, and him and I both look in that direction. And he looks at me, and I'm like, well, you're about to find out. And he's like, find out what? I'm like, that's probably them. He said, them who? So the Bigfoot things I've been telling you about. And all he said was, well, they better not hit my truck. And he got up and he went inside. Well, I hadn't planned on doing anything while he was here, because I didn't want to I just didn't want to get into it. So all I did was walk to that side of the yard. I picked up a rock. I threw a rock. I picked up another rock, threw another rock, like 2 back to back. And then there's a very obvious response, like a handful of rocks was thrown. I throw another one, and then there's a super obvious break. So that in itself was another change. I can't begin to tell you how many times they've come to the perimeter of my yard, done something, made some kind of noise or whatever. I walk over, and then they might do it one other time. About that time, after I started going back to the sitting spot, that's when these visits to the perimeter of my yard got more and more obvious. Like the next 2 years, I would record several nights of this throwing thing. They would start it out. I would walk over. I would throw an object. They would throw an object. I would throw an object. A lot of times they would always do the same thing, where I would throw an object, I wouldn't hear anything, and I'd go to turn and walk away, and then they'd throw one when my back was turned. But this just proved to me that it's like they were coming to get me, because I hadn't been down there. Now, was that what was going on? I don't know. But that's definitely what it seemed like.
Something hit the ground over here. I was sitting on the porch. Now there's a bird going off. That was me All right. Good job, buddy. Thank you. That was me.
So again, all that happened September, October, and November. At the end of November, there's pretty much a hard stop. All activity quit. Right before that happened, I had 2 evenings in a row where I had activity or throws up near the house. And 2 nights in a row, I recorded some of the best vocals that I've pretty much ever recorded. I don't know. It's all debatable. It's all in the eye of the beholder. The first one I'm going to show you, I was standing on the side of the yard. And I'm not even going to show the video because it's just, it's all black. There's absolutely no light where I'm standing. So you can't see anything. But I'm standing there on the side of the yard and I hear bipedal footsteps, then bipedal running, and it goes back to bipedal footsteps again. Now I heard just a little bit of something that sounded kind of like a vocal. When I got it inside and got it in an audio program, it's, if there was any vocalization that I had that I would want an expert to look at, it would be this one. It's, number one, I'm not good enough with audio programs to really pull this thing out to where you can really hear it because it's a little too far away. But what sounds like language in this, and it sounds like a juvenile, it sounds like a kid. There is no kid running around in my woods speaking this gibberish Native American language and running around without a flashlight. And that's what it sounds like.
You'll see the vocals here, definitely here. This is the running and jumping. These are the steps it's taking. At the end, you've got obvious bipedal steps. Second part of the vocal. Third vocals. It gets a little higher pitched. This is where he's running, jumping, and vocalizing. Last but not least, the bipedal footsteps, which are pretty obvious.
The second night, again, I had activity, a throw or something on the side of the yard. I'm standing there on my deck and I record some of the craziest. I think the title of the video that I put up when this happened was the most amount and most diverse vocalizations I've ever recorded.
A full set of vocals. This part right here, you can hear something obviously moving around in the woods. The first obvious vocal sounds like a yell. This part sounds like some kind of gorilla dog slash Tasmanian devil with some breaking and moving around. The Tasmanian devil.
Every year, the activity pretty much sticks to the same pattern when it comes to the seasons. Spring, I usually have activity. Summer, hardly anything happens. Fall is, that's their time. They're super active. Winter time, hardly anything at all. So I go several months with nothing happening. In summer of 2024, we get to fall, and I have a week where the dogs are going nuts. My dogs, the neighbors' dogs, I think it's like 5 days in a row. It's just super obvious, but nothing's happening up near my house. So it starts happening again. The dogs are all going nuts. I decided I'm going to go down to my sitting spot. But before I do, I walk out in the middle of my yard, and I'm just making a video recording all the dogs barking and talking about how wild they've been here lately and they're possibly around. As I'm making that video, there is a super loud, super obvious, like it's either a knock or a rock against wood. Whatever it is, it's super obvious. It's not something falling out of a tree. I would go get all my equipment and head back to my sitting spot, and it's on.
The dog's been barking off and on for about an hour. Off and on for about an hour. Oh, I was about to say that's a really good sign. And look what we got. I got that on video. All right, I'm gonna go get my gear.
Remember the branch stuck in the ground that we talked about, where I went down to the creek, looked at a couple branches, and then the next evening I go out there and there's a branch or a stick stuck right in the middle of my trail that I take to my sitting spot. It happens again, but this time even more obvious. I'm walking down there and there's a very specific way I go to my sitting spot. It's there's a couple saplings on either side, and I walk through the saplings, and I take a left, and I go and I sit down. Right there between those saplings, there's a stick, very obvious, like broken branch, kind of like the other one, not as tall, but pretty similar, stuck right there, right in the middle of the trail of my entryway. I see it's obviously interesting. I stop. I want to get video. I'm recording with I've got my thermal again, my GoPro, and my cell phone. I'm recording with just the GoPro at first. You can see the stick a little bit. I stop to investigate it. I put my thermal on the ground. I'm getting my phone out, and there's a throw that goes over my head and lands behind me. Well, I don't want to jump to conclusions. I'm like, well, I think that's a throw. I take my phone out. I get video of the stick. I turn my phone off, and I'm walking in the dark. And I go to take a few steps towards my sitting spot. There's another throw. I say something about the throw, and then immediately I just hear kind of commotion because I'm walking, so I'm stepping on leaves. But I hear like movement, is just what it sounds like to me. Noise in the woods. When I get the video back to the house and go over it, it's a super close, obvious wood knock. Like, whatever did this couldn't have been more than 40 feet away, maybe. And what it sounds like is a switch or a smaller limb that makes a whipping noise as it hits something. It's like whack, whack. Super obvious.
Man, that's interesting. I have to get it with my phone. Something just landed behind me. Log that I sit on. And I just walked up, and this is sitting, stuck in the ground. I had to come back and check it out tomorrow, see if I can figure out where it came from. But as I'm sitting here looking at this thing, something just hit the ground behind me. Very obvious. The dogs have been going nuts for a week, but I haven't been back here since it all started. So we're gonna find out. Something else just fell through the trees. And I just heard movement.
The second night of 2024 is going to be the last night to where you're just hearing what's going on while I'm sitting in the dark. And there's a very specific reason why. I talked about before about how difficult it was to make the decision on whether to use the night vision camera because it's got the red light on the front of it, and they might be able to see infrared. Here's what it comes down to. I don't consider myself a content creator. I'm not trying to make interesting videos for people just to watch so they're entertained. I'm trying to get evidence that these creatures exist. So I know that my best bet for getting good evidence is just to continue doing what I'm doing, sit in the dark, and try to get them on thermal when they get close, even though as this is going on, and it's unbelievably amazing, people don't have something to look at. But what happened that night is actually what motivated me to start actually using the night vision camera, because I felt like I kind of needed maybe a little bit of a protection, maybe, or that they were going to get super close behind me, and it was a very good opportunity to get them on video, because they do get super close that night, and probably within 25 feet. And it had a profound effect on me. Instead of me rehashing it right now, I'm just going to show you video of me talking about what happened that night, and then explaining everything that happened. And you can tell that I realized that this is nuts, that it's all the time, money, and effort that I've put towards doing this has gotten me to this point that I never even thought was possible. I had activity on Sunday evening, and they got close behind me. Basically what happened is I went out there for like 25, almost 30 minutes, nothing happened. Then there were a few throws, and then very obvious breaks kind of out in front of me and to the left, like normal. And then after that happened, a few minutes later, there was a very obvious, very loud snap sound, 20, 25 feet max, directly behind me. Now, obviously, I don't use a flashlight. I had the thermal around my neck. I turned and looked, and then I heard the stepping, and then the running off, and then there is a very, very low, you can barely hear it, but there is a vocal in there that sounds like yah, yah, yah. You know, it's thrilling, but it also proves that I think it was a juvenile, to be honest with you. But just like last time, I know I kind of talked about the fact that I'm a little frustrated and that I can't get them on thermal. Look, it's really not that big of a surprise. They know what they're doing. They're skilled enough to get very close without making noise. That snap sound they made was very much intentional, I believe. They weren't trying to hurt me. But it does get frustrating. I do not believe that these things are violent in my area. But I had to know that for sure. My wife and kids live here. But if they're in my area, there are thousands of people around America that live in areas just like I do. And these things are right there on the border of our society. I don't know what they do out in Montana, Alaska. I had a guy comment the other day about asking if I was all right. Are you being careful because their Native American lore says that they're, to stay away from them, that they're violent. That may be the case up there. You know, I have not seen that here, but this is 7 years of very slow, gradual progression to where I intentionally quit being aggressive towards them. And in turn, I believe it's created this mini condition of a little bit of trust, if nothing else, with a little bit of interest. I don't even think they eat the things that I leave out. I leave eggs out. There's still eggs I left out there 2 weeks ago. I think they recognize that I am leaving the stuff for them. I do think they're that smart. But I just wanted to make that point because of how close I am. And I want people to really know that I am doing this because science has let us down. Our institutions
have let us down. These things are not new. They've been here for thousands of years, just like human beings. They didn't show up 20 years ago. So our government, the scientific community, all these things, all these people, the universities, the wildlife management people, the national parks, state parks, they've all been lying to us this whole time. So it's not just that, but I think it's just the most fascinating thing I've ever come across in my entire life. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why the people that go out in the field with me and the people that are on my team and involved, that's why we're doing this, just to simply, honest to God, to find the truth and to share the truth. All right, what you're about to see is me sitting here after I've already heard 2 breaks out that direction. And then I heard a very loud, close break back there somewhere. And then I hear like footsteps, like it's running off. So we're talking super close, like just off that little drop off or somewhere around there. Hey, buddy. That was a very close break. That was very close. Oh, shit. There's a throw. There you go. I hear you. I hear you.
You got to keep in mind, all these nights that I've recorded where I'm having activity back there, you're only seeing the highlights. I've got just tons and tons of audio of throw, break, rock clags, running all kinds of stuff, right? We're just going to do the highlights or the best parts of each night. This next night is just basic throws and wood knocks.
Hey, good job. Oh, I have something. There we go.
I've gotten a lot of really good audio over the years. This is one of my favorites from the interactions itself. I'm standing there and there's a super obvious over the top break, and you can hear as it runs off after it does it. It's like something grabs a branch, breaks the crap out of it, and then just runs. All right. Good job. things that I started doing when I was down there is getting sticks and throwing at this one particular pine tree that's out in front of me. What I'm trying to do is throw sticks at this pine tree, hoping that they'll do the same thing and hit the exact same tree, and they actually did it. And the cool part about this one is you can hear the object like coming. You hear it hit something on the way in, and then it hits the exact same pine tree that I've been hitting over and over again.
Right there. There we go. Hot dog. Thank you. Good job. Hot dog. Dude, that was so close. Good job. Good job. Stop believing. They threw it at they hit my pine tree.
The last night I had activity in 2024, the way it all unfolded was completely unexpected. I've talked before about how I pretty much gave up on trying to trick these things or, trying to sneak around, and I thought it was very important to try to maintain that level of trust. That I did not think there was any real chance of them making like mistakes around here on my own property. For whatever reason, and I have a couple ideas, the last night I had activity, I think I unintentionally walked up on a juvenile. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that happened. And I do think it was completely by mistake. And then all the things that happened after I walked up on it led me to believe I'd kind of messed up and I'd kind of ticked them off. That was not supposed to happen at all. And maybe they weren't very happy about the entire situation. How it starts is all I'm wanting to do is make a video for a YouTube video that I'm putting together. Instead of going out of the gate on the back side of my house and going out to my sitting area like I normally do, that night I went out the front. Well, at one time I had a motion sensor light sitting up on a stump, and that light no longer worked anymore. So I think this is probably kind of what helped this whole situation out. But anyway, I go out of the front gate and I go down my driveway and I'm going to the side of my property. I'm going pretty fast because it's kind of late at night and I got to get in bed. I got to work the next day. As I'm walking up to the side of my property, I hear what sounds like an armadillo, like very loudly crunching around. I keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. And when I leave my driveway and step into the woods, I turn my light on. And I'm walking, walking, walking. I can still hear the armadillo. And I get to a point to where the next thing I hear is running off. but I'm still hearing the armadillo in the same spot. I take a few more steps and I see what looks like the side profile of a juvenile Sasquatch. It's all gray hair, dark gray, and it's up in the air like it was bounding on all fours. Its head was turned like this, and I saw from like the fingertips down to the waist, and the whole thing, the size of it is pretty small, like from the arm to, I don't know if it was his waist or his thigh, but the entire thing together was about the size of the body of a German Shepherd. And you know, I should have known better that you got to be ready at all times. And I was kicking myself after that because I wasn't I had a GoPro on top of my head, but you know, I'm not shining a light good enough on the subject for the GoPro to pick it up. I see it just, you know, just for a second as I follow it with my light. And I just see it go up in the air and down, and there's a hill back there, and it went down that hill. I can't say 100% that's what I saw, but I know it definitely did not look like any other animal that I had seen. And it looked like the top half of a juvenile Sasquatch. Well, after that happens, I go and get my equipment and I go down to the sitting area, and at first it starts out kind of normal. It starts out with breaks and throws and stuff, but as I'm sitting there, the throws get closer and closer to the point to where now I think they're pissed. And what you're going to see is there's one close throw that kind of goes over my head, and it's kind of entertaining at first, but then the second one, I can hear it leave where the creek is in front of me as it's going up from the creek area and coming back down and hitting leaves on the way down. And you can see me go like this because I think it's going to hit me. That's how close it was. And the camera is back behind me. Now, the camera did not catch the throw coming in. I guess the angle it was at, it went over my head and then went over the back of the camera. And you can tell I'm in the video kind of like, you know, it's a little too close, guys. It's a little much. The third time they throw something is the first time that back during one of these interactions back there, I actually get what they're throwing on video. Finally, after 2 years of doing this, you know, of having these interactions back there, I'm standing there and a throw comes in, it bounces, and you can see it actually bounce and land very close to my foot. Came very, very close. Now, shortly after that, I end up leaving. And to be honest with you, from what I saw and then what happened back there, I think maybe there was a little bit of miscommunication. Maybe they didn't realize that it was a mistake that I walked up on whatever it is I walked up on. And like I said before, context clues. Even though I didn't get a great look at this thing, I'd have to say I'm about 65-70% sure that that's what I was looking at. It didn't look like any other animal I'd ever seen. The only problem is I didn't see the face. It really did kind of worry me. I thought, man, did I just blow all of this trust that I had built up over the years?
Here's one. All right. Rock and
That was close. That's the closest one yet. That almost hit me. That wasn't very nice. That was close. Damn, that almost hit me. That wasn't very nice. Oh, this is a deer.
The last piece of evidence I got in 2024, I recorded when I was standing up there on my back deck. I had come back from my sitting area. I went inside and I bought a parabolic microphone. I got the parabolic, I walked out on my back deck. After about 5 minutes, I could hear something coming in. Gradually, I heard more and more breaking until eventually what sounded like a stick hit my deck. Well, I did like I normally do when I'm standing in the dark and I think they're around. I cleared my throat just to show that I'm not trying to hide. And after I cleared my throat, this is what I heard. Start hearing what sounds like breaks off in the distance. Here's one. I'm not going to go over a whole bunch of them, but the point is these breaks start getting closer and closer. A little while later, they get even closer. All right, now they're really close at this point. We're at 12 minutes, 36 seconds. That was a throw of some sort.
Before we get to the actual vocal, there's a lot of people that do Sasquatch research that report malfunctions in electronic equipment. Now, I don't really know. I think a lot of that probably comes down to human error. But, sometimes equipment just malfunctions. I have no idea what's going on exactly with this recording. There's 2 different times where I've left this parabolic out. There's activity, and I get this really strange background noise that I can't really get rid of, because if I get rid of too much of it, it changes the way the vocalization sounds. But this really weird computer sounding noise or whatever. It's happened one other time before. Odds are it's probably just has something to do with the recorder itself, I don't really know. But at least you know kind of what you're hearing, that whatever that computer sounding noise isn't anything around me.
I clear my throat. Right after I clear my throat, somebody else makes a noise. I say, that was it. I had a difficult time trying to make an ending to this docu-series. There's a lot of things that I want to say. I tried shooting video all around my property and writing things out. Just nothing seemed to work. So I'm sitting in our vehicle, one of our vehicles, where there's silence, and just sat here for a while and thought about what I want people to know. So I'm just going to talk. Obviously, I've taken this entire subject and the fact that these creatures actually exist very, very seriously, for obvious reasons. But I understand completely why people do not believe that these creatures are real. I understand that there are millions of people all across North America that have never seen these creatures and have probably never even thought anything about them. Out of sight, out of mind. And I know how hard it is to believe a complete stranger that, tells you that, hey, this subhuman species actually lives not just in wilderness areas all across North America, but right on the edge of our society. And I didn't just experience a few things and then just jumped on the bandwagon and was like, oh, I believe Sasquatch is real. After each major event, like the first evening that I was pretty much, almost face to face with that creature, and it threw rocks at me and then it growled at me later on, I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what I was dealing with. I had my answer. But even after that, there'd be long stretches of time where I didn't have anything happen, and then I'd start to doubt myself. And then a year later, I had my sighting of it walking down the middle of my driveway. And all doubt was gone after that for a few months. And then it started all over again. And during this entire process, my wife knew everything that was going on. Now, I didn't show her every piece of evidence, but she was caught up. But my kids, they knew I was into the topic, but they really didn't know why. They knew I ran around in our woods looking for signs of Bigfoot. They knew I bought equipment. They knew I went to the woods, but I never fully explained to them why. I gave them enough information to be aware of their surroundings, like you would if you live somewhere where there's mountain lions or bear or something like that, But my relationship with my confidence in knowing these creatures existed completely changed in 2022. Me and several other people from my research team, or our research team, the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, we started going to a property in East Georgia in 2022. The first time we went out there, we found amazing evidence. And the very first night, we actually had activity near the camp. We had a rock that was thrown, hit my vehicle, hit the vehicle I'm sitting in right now. We recorded audio of really good vocals. I mean, our minds were blown. We knew it was going to be a good area, or had a good feeling, because one of our team members, he had a crazy event happen out there when he was 19, over 30 years before we came back out there. On our third trip, as a group, 3 of us saw 2 of these creatures within 40 minutes of each other. The first one I saw, it was 50 feet away from me, completely unobstructed, in the middle of the afternoon. Maybe, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours before the sun went down. After experiencing that and seeing one from that, that close up, there was no going back. I went home from that expedition and got my family all together in the kitchen, told them exactly what I saw, and told my children exactly what has been going on around our property for years. Daughter, couldn't care less. To this day, she's never had anything happen, which I thank God for. My son, on the other hand, he was very intrigued. And since then, as you've seen, he's the one that found the juvenile track down at the creek. He's actually had a couple things happen. And I knew specifically that he would need most of the information because he's the one that played in the woods, right? He's had, just recently, had a stick thrown by the side of his head. He's experienced a couple of very loud breaks, one with me and one with his mother. And, the biggest fear, I knew these things were real, but it's ego. It's just not wanting to be wrong is all it comes down to. And luckily for me, seeing 2 of them in the middle of the daytime, or seeing, that afternoon, and then one of them was 50 feet away, there's just no going back, And I know a lot of people don't have that. I get it. But on the other side of the coin, I realize our institutions have completely failed us. And it's very frustrating to know that, the amount of ego involved in, we have decided that because a subset of our society has not focused their attention on this one particular thing and ran through this very specific process in order to prove that these creatures are real, they are categorized as non-existent. So a very short way, a very blunt way of saying it is, human beings have failed to do something, therefore something that does exist is said to not exist. And it's just crazy to think. But what I do think is going to happen eventually is amateur researchers like me and my team members are going to get enough evidence to actually convince the scientific community that it's worth spending time, money, and effort on this topic. And they're probably going to get some funding and they're going to run with it, and hopefully they prove their existence. Because it's going to take funding, it's going to take money. I could have proven that these creatures existed several times over again if I had multi-spectrum cameras that I could wear on my body where I record the entire time I'm out somewhere 360 degrees. That's what's going to be needed. My only hope is that when the scientific community does take over, that they listen to the people who have experience and that actually do know some things about these creatures. If nothing else, I hope that the evidence that I've collected here in Georgia over the past 7 years will help someone, a few people at least, understand that the creature known as Sasquatch does exist. And I am willing to put my life and my personal reputation on the line to prove that it's a fact. These aren't, they're not just spirits. They're not figments of people's imagination. They live and breathe and eat and have families and raise their young right here next to us humans. And I think it's one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen in my entire life. And I just want to say thank you for those of you that have supported my work personally and the work of our group over the past 7 years.
Wide-eyed of you, wide-eyed of you, unspoken, truth left from you, slipped away, no more words for you, take it back, no matter what you do, the truth, breathe it out, take your boundaries, our mission, trudge through the mud of time, this truth, casts shadows in the dark, shadows in the dark. I'm too far in and too far gone. The only way in is through in the darkness I see. What you've taken from me, something I had all along. The truth, just breathe the truth. I cast shadows, it's me. Breathe it out, make your boundaries. Our mission, trudge through the mud of time. This truth, cast shadows in the dark. Shadows in the dark. Shadows in the dark. Shadows in the dark. Shadows in the dark.